In 1979, a boy named Sujit Kumar, he was named the chicken boy of Fiji by the media. He was, his toddler and his mother committed suicide when he was very young, and then his father left him confined under the house to live with chickens. Right? He was rescued sometime after, but he couldn't speak. Right? As soon as they pulled him out, and he was raised by chickens. Right? He couldn't speak, and his only verbalization was clucking. The only thing he could do was clucking. And his interaction with people, he basically couldn't interact with people, right? And his behavior has improved over time after being with some people, but he will never learn to speak, and he remains profoundly disabled. The reason I told you this story is because this is a story of something known as a feral child. Feral children, we don't know too much about them because there are very few feral children in the world. Feral children are basically children who are abandoned completely by their parents when they're very young, so they have no social interaction whatsoever. They're just left in a room, probably with a little bit of food. Most of these children grow up to be extremely disabled, have no interest in society, in human society, and they don't develop language. So, there's a critical period in a child's development where it learns language, right? Between the ages of about 6 months to 4 years. And in his case, and in most feral children's case, they don't pick up language at all. But one of the most interesting things about feral children, it's a horrible thing to do, right? To leave your child abandoned like that. But one of the most interesting things we can learn is a feral child has a completely different sense of identity than a normal human being or a normal human child. And the reason for this, according to scientists, is when you grow up as a child, as a normal child in a normal social situation, everybody around you gives you your identity, right? People point at you, they say the word you, they call you by your name, and eventually you start believing in the idea that you are your own individual person, you have a name, and you have certain characteristics. And identity is something, it's very similar to your index finger, right? Your index finger cannot point at itself. Similarly, your identity cannot be defined by you. It's defined by your society. And this is one of the biggest reasons I have a gripe with most of these, these Instagram pages that come out and they say, be yourself, do what you love. Well, the truth is that, things like that, things like follow your heart, it's all pretty much crap because we are socially conditioned animals, right? And a lot of people try to break out of conditioning, but the truth or the sad truth is that you can't. We are social creatures. Our society defines us. And, the way I rationalize this is very similar to the way a neuron works in a brain. Every neuron in a brain is important, right? Every cluster of neurons in a brain is important. They have particular functions. But we never talk about individual neurons, right? We never say, oh, neuron 5 is behaving like this. We never talk about particular neurons. The output of a neuron is expressed in the behavior of the human being that the brain belongs to, right? So you only see the neuron as a whole, as a zoomed out whole with its entire ecosystem. It works much the same way with people. People are an amalgamation, or social structure is defined by its behavior as an entire society, right? And each individual person's contribution, it's not as important as we think it is, right? We put too much onus on a human being and we say, hey, that guy is like this guy is like this. But to be very honest, your identity is just an amalgamation of your genes. So you have certain tendencies to do things. Some people have a tendency for addictive behavior, for example. Some people have better emotional resilience. It's your genes plus your society. So genotype plus phenotype, which is the expression of your genes, which depends on your environment. Right? And in social situations, especially with a social creature like human beings, everything you do, every thought you've ever had, every thought you will ever have is just a variation of thoughts that other people have put in your head. Right? So the number one question when people say, hey, or the number one advice I give people when they say, hey, I want to be this or I want to do this, and I want to change myself or I want to change my mindset, all I tell them is you can't actually do it individually by yourself. If you want to change who you are, you have to change your environment, right? You have to physically put yourself around people you want to be like. If you hang around with a lot of poker players, eventually you will become a poker player, right? It just works like that. If you hang around with a lot of basketball players, you will eventually become a basketball player, right? If you hang around with a lot of people that do business, you will eventually start doing business yourself because you're in that environment. And consciously or unconsciously, however unconditioned you think you are, you will eventually fall prey to society's or your society, your immediate environmental norm of what you should and shouldn't be doing, right? And there are very few people that actually rise above that and are able to impact the environment around them. But you could argue that it's society that shaped that person in the first place, and then that person is shaping the rest of the environment. But at the end of the day, it was society that shaped the environment through this person, right? So it's important to start seeing identity more as a group thing, as something that, I play this role in this group rather than I am this and I do this, right? And I think that's very destructive behavior. And that's where when a lot of people get caught in the idea that they are super important and they are the ones that do everything and they are the ones that are rationalized or being rational and making their own thoughts, well, they don't fully understand the brain. Because your brain makes a decision and then it tells you or it acts like you made that decision. But the truth is, it's your primate brain that's making decisions and your prefrontal cortex that's convincing you that you made the decision. But at the end of the day, it's society that made that decision for you. And the only real good decisions that you can make are your ability to shift your society or shift the environment that you're around. Now, one concern that people have is, I can't change my environment. Right? Some people are just trapped. They're like, okay, these are the people I'm around. What can I do about it? They're just like this, and I have no other friends, and I don't know what to do. And my suggestion to them is, dude, we have the internet. Right? With the internet, you can have a completely different type of society. You can choose the environment you want to be around. And I'll give you my own example. Growing up, I was born to two very orthodox parents, and the environment that I was around was super, super conservative. Right? In the sense that, we had the traditional, okay, you need to go to college, you need to do this, you need to do this. The only real good thing those guys did was to give me a computer, right, at that time. And the minute I had a computer and I had internet, I was able to change my society or change my environment. And I joined these online forums. The first thing I did was join an online forum to make games, because I used to play games first. So to be very honest, I'm part of many different ecosystems, right? The gaming ecosystem in India, and then the game development ecosystem, that was like one step away. And then from there, I went into the design ecosystem, and from there, I went into the video development ecosystem, and from there, I started doing business. So it was, each society shaped me to bridge or bridged me to go to the next one. Right? So at the end of the day, however much that people think that, okay, I worked hard and I did all of these things, I think the working hard part and the intelligence, that's genes, right? I mean, my parents are smart too. It's just their conditioning and their circumstances didn't allow them to tap into their full potential. Whereas with me, the internet and these ecosystems allowed me to tap into my full potential. And everything that I do today is in fact an extension of what I did when I was much, much younger. It's just everything that I do or every environment that I get into builds me up for the next one, right? So the internet is your friend. Find an environment and obsess about it, like get engrossed in it. If you want to learn, say, design, then just subscribe to every design podcast you can. Put your entire newsfeed, like just figure out design news sources and put that across your newsfeed. Change your wallpaper, find design communities, join all of them, try to talk and try to comment or respond, and that's one of the reasons we created the Meta Startup Group, right? That brings a lot of entrepreneurs together, so that if there's somebody who wants to get into entrepreneurship, every day he's seeing other entrepreneurs work hard, and when you're in such an environment, you feel through peer pressure, you feel like working hard too. So I think that's one of the best things you can do. Change your environment, because trying to change yourself by yourself, saying, okay, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. from tomorrow and eat super healthy, you're going to do that for 3 days before you lose control, right? Because we are not in rational control of ourselves. But if you change your society and or your environment and hang around with really fit people, either in the real world or online, then you as a person, every time you see food, you'll be like, okay, I really want to eat that piece of cake, but I know the society that I'm in will shun that, right? Because everybody complains about eating, at least the fitness group, they complain about eating cheat meals, right? So change your environment, and I've seen this happen with many people. It doesn't have to be a physical environment. You could join a bodybuilding group online and just comment often, and then through peer pressure, you will become fit. Change your environment if you want to change yourself. That's it for me.